Here, I made my own meme.
Pretty chill, homeboy.
Lord have mercy. DreamWorks, everyone's favorite animation studio whenever it's convenient for them. Despite their notoriously inconsistent output following the same cycle of making a couple masterpieces in a row and then peddling unbridled mid onto theater screens for a few years straight ever since their inception, DreamWorks' IPs are still pretty iconic and recognizable. While they do still hold a reputation of Diet Disney in most households, I've always earnestly loved DreamWorks and how experimental and inconsistent they are. Got a whole video about that, by the way, but please watch this one first. I need the money. Now, if you're at all familiar with DreamWorks, there's a chance you've seen or heard of one of their TV shows based on their successful film franchises. Something people tend to ignore about DreamWorks is just how much content they actually push out for television. Shows that act as a way to give viewers just a little more of the movies they liked so much while also fleshing out the world and characters beyond a 90-minute theatrical release. Some of these shows are far more well known than others, for their own reasons both good and bad. Jesus Tap Dancing Christ bad, so bad, what were you even thinking? I hope you get typhoid for rendering this, but I don't think any of you quite understand the magnitude of televised content DreamWorks have produced. Like, you might think I'm exaggerating, but a couple weeks ago I had a look for myself and proceeded to have a mental breakdown. There is so much, and I thought it'd make for an interesting video. So yeah, I watched every DreamWorks TV show, and I jotted down my thoughts for a handful of them, as a lot of them can be described in one sentence. It's The Croods, but as a TV show. It's The Boss Baby, as a TV show. It's Turbo, without Latinx making a taco, heartwarming. To clarify, because I know some people are gonna bring it up, I'll only be talking about the shows that are based off of already existing DreamWorks franchises, and not any of their original animated shows like Troll Hunters and Kipo. One, because they're incredibly out of place, and they're also so good that they deserve a far more gracious video than this, and two, because if I cover these two, that means I'll have to cover every DreamWorks show ever, and that is too large of an undertaking for the time I currently have. Also, I'll be ignoring the shows that are very clearly aimed at super young kids, like Dragon's Rescue Riders and both Trolls shows. It's low-hanging fruits, and I have standards. Some of these shows I already have a history with, and some of them I'm watching for the first time. I'd love to do a completely in-depth review on all of them, but the video would go on for way too long, and I don't think many of you are going to stick around about an hour from now to hear me talk about the Croods family tree, so I'll try my best to respect your time.
It's like a weapon, how you cut me down to size. Try not to smile when you
Penguins of Madagascar is a classic, just plain and simple, it's a classic. 6-year-old me thought this was the hardest ever, and you know what? He wasn't wrong. It's just a perfect concept for a show anyway. You take the best characters from the Madagascar movies who are already incredibly flexible and can basically be put in any situation to make it entertaining. Excuse me, Mr. President, a second plane has hit the second tower, America is under attack, and you give them their own show. Penguins of Madagascar holds up tremendously well. It's not going to set the world on fire or blow anyone's minds. If you've watched the Madagascar movies, you can expect the sort of antics that are going to happen just because of the penguin's presence, but it never takes away from how insanely funny this show is.
Now all we have to do is blow up your hard drive.
Yes, of course. What?
If you just want to sit back and watch something casual that you can be guaranteed to have a good time with, and this is really all you need. The dynamic between the penguins works well in the movies, but it absolutely flourishes when they're given the spotlight in their own TV show. Also gonna take this time to shout out the Penguins of Madagascar movie because it's genuinely one of the funniest things DreamWorks have ever made, and it does not get nearly enough credit for that.
But can you fly it, man?
There's only one way to find out. No, I still can't read.
The Penguins taking literally everything they do completely seriously with all this military and spy shit lends itself perfectly to creating some of the silliest scenarios possible, and it keeps the show from being boring. Hell, this never even comes close to touching boring. Even if you don't vibe with most of what's on display in terms of comedy, it's just too charming to hate. I don't think there's a single bad episode of this, at least not from what I can remember from my repressed childhood memories. I rewatch the show on occasion because, well, it slaps, but I am mostly going off of what I remember from watching it religiously as a kid. If there's actually a bad episode of Penguins in Madagascar, then let me know in the comments section. I'll try and link you up with a girl on Snapchat to fix your terminal lack of bitches. If you think the Madagascar movies are the funniest things ever made, and regardless of quality they basically are, then you're in for a good time here.
throw everything on my front lawn. So much for self-perception.
I skadooshed your uncle!
Every time I remember Legends of Awesomeness, I always have to wonder if this show really did exist. I remember watching a few episodes as a kid, and only in recent years did I actually watch the whole show in full, and yeah, it still feels like a fever dream. I think it's because of how it looks, that's probably why. A trend you're gonna notice with a lot of CG animated DreamWorks shows is that even for the time they were made, they kind of look like ass. I get that TV budgets are nowhere close to the hundreds of millions, quadrillion dollars they give movies, but it's still very distracting and doesn't take away from how ugly the show looks overall. The character models are fine, though their animations are pretty limited. Fight scenes look okay though. I just can't get over how washed out everything looks. The lighting is really flat, which doesn't help how plasticky the the show's low-budget aesthetics are. But beyond how the show looks, is there much to warrant watching it nowadays? Not really, honestly. I mean, technically the show is canon, I think. But other than that, I don't see much value in watching it. The show is above average in my books. It feels like what everyone initially thought Kung Fu Panda was gonna be back in 2008. Like, you hear that title of no knowledge of the movie itself beyond its frankly abysmal trailers, and it doesn't give you the best first impression. And in a meta way, it kinda reflects the film's whole thing about not judging a book by its cover, because Jesus Christ, Kung Fu Panda 1 was great. Legends of Awesomeness, though, is painfully unfunny and lowbrow a lot of the time, and while it has its moments of genuinely decent and even good storytelling and some solid action sequences, the overall package isn't much to talk about. I like that we basically get a whole show focusing on Po and his friendship with the Furious Five, and that this series serves to bridge the gap between the first and second movie, but that doesn't really mean much when the majority of the show's dialogue is painful to get through. Even worse when the visuals increase the speed of glaucoma. A lot of people criticize the voice acting for Po because it isn't Jack Black, but honestly he sounds completely fine. That intro though, that's Jack Black. You can't tell me it isn't. Are you f***ing kidding me? How did anyone hate this guy? I hope that in Kung Fu Panda 5 they get this guy to voice Po, especially when Jack Black is busy ruining lifelong friendships and doing whatever he's cooking in the Minecraft movie.
This is a crafting table.
Why did his head do that? But yeah, Legends of Awesomeness is fine. I wouldn't recommend going out your way to watch it though, nor do I think it's necessary to watch despite being canon. It's harmless though.
Tell me one thing, baby, do you see your shadow?
Okay, this right here, peak fiction. DreamWorks Dragons went 2 times platinum on my Netflix. I am a massive fan of How to Train Your Dragon. To this day, I believe that Dragons 1 and 2 are the best DreamWorks movies ever made. And honestly, the Dragons TV show follows suit by being the single greatest show based on one of DreamWorks' existing franchises. Through Riders of Berk, Defenders of Berk, Race to the Edge, if you want a shockingly good expansion of the world and characters of How to Train Your Dragon, then this is tailor-made for you. While it doesn't come close to hitting the same emotional beats and exciting spectacle of the movies, and is obviously still restrained due to its TV budget, this is still a very fun, exciting, and super engaging show to binge if you find yourself obsessed with this world and the characters within. The story is also pretty damn good. It serves to bridge the gap between Dragons 1 and 2, and it does it a lot better than something like Legends of Awesomeness does for Kung Fu Panda. Again, while it isn't nearly as sophisticated as the movies, it still has that level of maturity to it that makes Dragons so absorbing. And much like Legends of Awesomeness, it's cool to watch Hiccup and his friends actually go on adventures over the years between Dragons 1 and 2. I actually feel like I'm watching something that complements the source material and helps make the world feel much bigger, all without sacrificing the franchise's tone and identity. Also, when it comes to the animation, this doesn't look nearly as shitty as most of DreamWorks' CG animated shows, especially Race to the Edge, which evidently had the Netflix money pumped into it because it actually looks fairly decent. I'm honestly shocked. We have a fantastic continuation and addition to the source material that perfectly translates a majority of its strengths and is able to stand on its own, and also isn't a complete eyesore. This is incredible. Surely nothing. I'm going to kill myself! Dragons: The Nine Realms. So, after Dragons 3 concluded the movie trilogy, DreamWorks had the bright idea to continue the story with a sequel series set far into the future, and chat, this is so ass. I do not know what they were cooking. This is like the How to Train Your Dragon equivalent to the Star Wars sequel trilogy, except there's 8 seasons of it. Granted, they have like 6 or 7 episodes each, but 8 seasons of dog shit in only 2 years is actually diabolical. The series not only looks like ass, but as a story, it's genuinely just an insult to the entirety of Dragons' continuity. It steals so much of its plot from the previous Dragons series and proceeds to do it worse, being littered with holes and contradicting the movie and show on numerous occasions. And on top of that, the characters are nothing to write home about at all. Also, I just hate the show on a conceptual level. I can usually get behind most concepts so long as the execution is good, but this has done nothing to wash away my bias towards putting How to Train Your Dragon in a modern setting. It just doesn't work as well as the old Viking setting of the movies. If you're getting into How to Train Your Dragon, do not watch The Nine Realms at all, it is a waste of time. The original Dragon series though, Riders of Berk, Defenders of Berk, and Race to the Edge, more than worth your time and attention. Go watch those. Raise your hand if you had no idea Puss in Boots received the TV show. Yeah, that's what I thought. And despite there being 6 seasons of content here, Jesus, it's really nothing to write home about. This is not some hidden gem scenario, this isn't The Last Wish, you are not going to be blown away by this show. I am impressed that they at least attempted and clearly put a good amount of effort into giving us a backstory for Puss in Boots' f***ing backstory, but it doesn't mean much when the show itself is absolutely miserable to look at and doesn't do much to entertain. I'm still surprised that many DreamWorks shows are actually serialized and tell an actual story that spans multiple seasons, as opposed to just being mostly episodic. It's actually kinda commendable in a way, and shows that there were people working on these shows that cared and wanted to tell a story, but a lot of them fall flat when it comes to the execution, and Adventures of Puss in Boots is no exception to this. I've already run out of things to talk about here.
You stand so tall with the weight of the world on your shoulders. Don't let them break you.
I do not understand why there has been revisionist history about Home of all movies. I do not care that someone on TikTok told you it was good. It's not. It's a very bad movie. So what happens when you take the literal bottom of the barrel, just the absolute worst slop DreamWorks have ever produced, and you give it its own show? You don't get something that bad, actually. I honestly just wanted to talk about this because it's probably the most radical shift in quality compared to the movie out of all of DreamWorks' shows. Firstly, the animation is actually kinda pleasant to look at. Not the biggest fan of the art style myself, but it's much better than making another CG animated abomination. Secondly, the show's just cute and chill. Compared to the movie, the energy difference is night and day. The movie was practically bouncing off the walls, whereas this is far more restrained and all the better for it. I didn't watch much of this, only a handful of episodes before I got what its deal was, but if you want a version of Home that isn't completely obnoxious and hard to watch, then this is the next best thing. It actually feels like the show has a heart to it, and that it wasn't made just to satiate children with short attention spans. It's still a show primarily aimed at kids, but if you're babysitting a kid or taking care of a younger sibling, then there's no harm in putting this on, and it definitely won't drive you up the walls. I know, because I spent some time watching this with my little sister, and while she was probably too young to register any of what was going on, I took solace in the fact that it had her attention, and it wasn't giving me the urge to plug my ears and cry in front of the mirror. You wanna know what show did make me do that though?
Netflix original series for kids.
This was the public's first impression of DreamWorks coming to Netflix, and I find that deeply embarrassing. I wanted to include Turbo Fast in this section because both Home and Turbo are some of DreamWorks' weakest movies, and both of which received 2D animated shows on Netflix after their release. But whereas Home's show is completely unrecognizable compared to the atrocities of the original movie, Turbo Fast feels very much like an extension of Turbo itself and retains basically all of its undesirable qualities. I mean, the original trailer announcing this series already tells you what you're in for, and I get that companies didn't learn how to make good trailers for animated movies until like 2015, but no, the series really is that bad. The trailer is doing it perfect justice. The animation looks fine, it's everything else that makes me want to jump off a building. I find everything about this show to be intensely annoying, and I have unfortunately had the displeasure of being exposed to it years ago when I was taking care of my cousin, who seemed fairly indifferent about the whole thing. I didn't hear him laugh once, but he wasn't exactly begging me to turn it off. Turbo Fast is just mindless television junk food that I'm absolutely not the target audience for, but at the same time, I can appreciate the Home TV show, even though it's clearly not aimed at me, because it's visibly not made with the intent on turning children's brains to mush.
I'll never let them break through. I'll never tell them that.
No.
You stand so tall with the weight of the world on your shoulders. Space out, thank you.
Congratulations on skipping to this point in the video, Joshua. Oh, here it is. I know for a fact that many of you clicked on this video. Breathe, you fucking idiot. I know for a fact that many of you clicked on this video because you saw Megamind Rules in the thumbnail, and not too long ago I actually announced a full video reviewing the whole show. Long story short, I was running out of things to say about it by the halfway point, and I simply couldn't put a video like that out, especially if it was any longer than 10 minutes. So what better way to talk about it than to have it cap off a video about DreamWorks TV shows. To just cut to the chase real quick, you know this series is bad, I know this series is bad, we all know this series is unsalvageable dog shit. Being attached to the absolute disaster that is Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate, which was supposed to act as a really long pilot episode for Megamind Rules, only for the marketing team to start advertising it as a fully fledged sequel to the original movie, which naturally caught way more eyes, and resulted in a lot more scorn being thrown its way than anticipated. Though to be fair, it's hard to make defenses for a TV movie that doesn't render tennis balls properly. If you want to hear me bitch about Doom Syndicate in detail, then watch my video on it. Megamind Rules is a very interesting specimen because it's both better and worse than Doom Syndicate at the exact same time. Better because the finale actually has some redeemable qualities to it, and worse because the dialogue makes me want to cut my f***ing head off. The series is all about Megamind wanting to become a superhero influencer who does influencer things. He's an influencer. Every time the series tries to do something hip or do anything related to the internet, it genuinely paralyzes me with hatred. Like, even when it's trying to be annoying, it's still so evidently written by out-of-touch white people. From the f***ing dipshit dude monkey guy voiced by Ryuji from Persona 5 just saying random shit like,
post that on your social and you'll get buku engagement.
Yeah, back in my day, they called those likes and comments, you fucking corporate piece of shit.
You know what, maybe I should have accepted Maruki's reality if I knew this was how Ryuji was going to react to the Phantom Thieves disbanding. Every time Megamind starts filming himself, I brace myself for the pure impact of cringe I'm about to be hit with. The animation is still an eyesore, Megamind carries on his regression scene in Doom Syndicate and is still an incompetent man-child who doesn't even know what the internet is. And the ongoing story the show tries to tell, it sucks. It's about the resurrection of Machiavillain, that brain guy from the end of Doom Syndicate, who apparently taught Megamind everything he knows about being a villain, blah blah blah. This contradicts the first movie, shut up. And it leads to Machiavillain framing Megamind for a bunch of crimes, and then the entire city just looks at this guy introducing himself as Machia-fucking-Villain, and goes, yeah, this guy's alright, I think he's one of them superheroes. They don't even address how absolutely stupid it is that anyone would accept a guy named Machiavillain as a superhero.
Machiavillain is a bad guy?
Yes.
Anyway, the plot escalates. They somehow find a way to rope Metro Man back into this shitstorm who basically does nothing. The finale involves Roxanne being turned into a supervillain, and honestly, while it's not a good episode, I do like the scene on the tower that directly mirrors the end scene of the original movie. I thought the scene was good. I thought it was really clever, honestly. Doesn't save the rest of it, though. Megamind Rules is a generational travesty, and probably one of the worst things DreamWorks have ever produced. I'm not saying anything new here. Everyone's been dunking on this show and Doom Syndicate for the entire year, but I could not do a video on DreamWorks TV shows without bringing it up. Don't watch it. It's not worth it. There's little to no ironic enjoyment to be found, unlike with Doom Syndicate. It's nigh unwatchable garbage. Anyway, that's the end of the video. I don't have a proper conclusion, but I want to make more videos in the future going over many DreamWorks TV shows that I didn't cover in this video. There's a lot of them, and they're pretty interesting, quality aside. Let me know if you're interested in another video about DreamWorks TV shows. Again, I don't have a proper conclusion. Play Yakuza. This bit is kind of getting tired. I don't know if I'll change it. I don't know.